Toxic algae is definitely a new problem. Since I was growing up, we never had any outbreaks, at least none that I ever knew anything about. And since the 2017 flood, there have been a few down here. When it's there, it's pretty nasty. You can't go swimming. You have to make sure your pets stay out of the water. It definitely has changed sort of how we feel about summers.
We have been dealing with harmful algal blooms in freshwater resources for a while. In 2014, I want to take you back to what happened in Lake Erie, one of the largest blooms that we had seen, and it disrupted the drinking water supply for the city of Toledo.
The microcystis was so thick that they had to shut down the drinking water intakes in Lake Erie. And so that is all the public water coming into a community, so no showering, no washing dishes. You had to be careful what was used from the tap.
But what happened is the chemistry inside of the metabolism of the lake changed. So the loading levels that we were hitting before, like the limits on the nutrients, were being met. But the lake was responding differently, so that our management styles had to change dramatically. And so fast forward to 2017, we saw very similar hot weather patterns, intensive storm that brought in loading of materials that carry phosphorus, so that's like manure, soils, that then contributed to fueling a large algal growth.
Those are the two nutrients that you need, phosphorus and nitrogen, and in the Finger Lake system, probably the more important one is phosphorus because it's so scarce. If you look at the ratios of phosphorus to nitrogen, there's more than enough nitrogen. You'll use up the available phosphorus first. So then when you're tracking which nutrient you need to then support a bloom, you're starting to measure phosphorus.
Now, harmful algal blooms aren't always toxic, but they can be. So there's cyanobacteria that can produce the microcystin toxin.
Cyanobacteria are photosynthetic organisms, so that's one of the things. They're bacteria. They're also commonly known as blue-green algae. They're some of the oldest living organisms on Earth, 3.5 billion years old. So they are thought to be responsible for bringing oxygen into the environment of Earth.
Cyanobacteria's claim to fame is that they produce toxins. Some of the toxins, all you do is get a skin rash. Other toxins will give you diarrhea and other gastrointestinal problems. But the third type of toxins are neurotoxins, and those toxins you can actually die if you get a high enough dose.
We are looking here at some lake samples from the Finger Lakes and looking at the cyanobacteria that are present. We see a lot of microcystis here. And one of the things that you'll notice about the microcystis is these are colonial forms, so they're much harder to ingest by zooplankton and other filter feeders. And another key feature of them is that they can float on the surface, so they have gas vacuoles where they can move up and down in the water column. And once they start to grow very quickly, they can shade out other competing phytoplankton.
Owasco Lake was the first Finger Lake to have a recognized bloom back in 2016. But what is causing it now to bloom? So this is where the scientists and the researchers are helping us identify what has changed.
People were particularly surprised when Skaneateles Lake experienced a cyanobacteria outbreak. And that's because of the character of the lake and its water chemistry and so on. And that really signaled to folks that our situation has changed, that we can't take this water quality for granted anymore. And that's particularly important in Skaneateles because it is the unfiltered drinking water supply for Syracuse. The other lakes are used for public water supplies, but all that water is filtered before it goes into people's homes.